Tonight on the Local Live, hundreds will walk to prevent suicide at Harbor Island. An organization that treats autism has opened an office in Mamaroneck. Terror TV returns with Season 2. On tonight's roundtable, we discuss National Coming Out Day. These stories and more coming up. Good evening, it's Thursday, October 12th. I'm Ral Kathwari. Welcome to the Local Live. The American Foundation for Suicide Prevention will host their annual Out of Darkness walks at Harbor Island this Saturday. Reporter Jack Wells has the story.
Greg Loomis is a suicide survivor and the chair of the Westchester chapter of the AFSP, or the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, an organization who wants to create suicide awareness, invest in new research, and support survivors of suicide loss.
A lot of people don't even realize that suicide is the 10th leading cause of loss of life in this country. Somewhere around 45,000 Americans take their life every year. For every American that takes their life in this country, 12 attempts are made.
For Loomis, walking to fight suicide at the Out of Darkness walk differs from other awareness causes. He says people will have a one-of-a-kind experience where they can celebrate life and mourn their loved ones lost by suicide.
With other walks such as cancer or diabetes or Alzheimer's, which are all very, very worthwhile causes without a doubt, the uniqueness to this walk is the fact that these people who come together, they don't have an answer. There's no answer. They lost a loved one or a friend, and there's no answer why, there's no reason why, and they have to live with that for the rest of their lives, not knowing what happened.
If you want to join the walk, make sure to register online. There will also be early registration at 10 a.m. at Harbor Island Park.
Even if you have not been touched by suicide and you come just to experience what happens here, you'll walk away feeling hope in the world and in your community and for yourself.
To learn more about the AFSP efforts for suicide prevention, visit their website at www.afsp.org. And if you or someone you know is in need of help, the suicide hotline is 1-800-273-8255 and available 24 hours a day.
An organization that uses applied behavior analysis to treat autism has opened offices in the village of Mamaroneck. Reporter Christy Capello tells us more about CARD, or the Center for Autism and Related Disorders.
The Center of Autism and Related Disorders has just opened a new location in Mamaroneck on Library Lane. CARD is a facility for autistic children and young adults that seeks to help patients develop educational, interpersonal, and cognitive skills. Therapists at the center use a treatment technique called applied behavior analysis to treat their patients.
Specifically, it helps with the social interactions, language interactions, and cognitive improvement, as well as decreasing the behavioral issues that you often see with autism.
CARD was founded over 20 years ago with its headquarters in California. The center continues to expand nationally with a projected number of 400 centers by the end of 2018. The center attributes its success to ABA and the familiar structure of its classrooms and facilities.
Based off of our client base and the needs of New York and really the Westchester community, that's how we were actually able to open our offices in the Bronx as well as in our Hartsdale location. So really it lets us know not only is there a need for ABA, but there's specifically a need for CARD.
CARD is holding an open house on Thursday, October 26th to introduce themselves to the Mamaroneck community.
Double, toil and trouble. Terrifying Terror TV is back on LMC TV for a spooktacular Season 2. Victoria PD has a sneak peek.
Ready for Halloween? LMC TV has just the spooky show for you. Terror TV, airing at 11 p.m. on Friday nights in October, starting this upcoming Friday, is bringing all the scares while showcasing older horror films.
Well, Terror TV is reminiscent of the Elvira shows. What we're trying to do here is bring back a little bit of that and pay homage to those great days of horror television.
According to Sullivan, the idea for the show came in October of 2014 with the help of Chris Lavinia, who writes, co-directs, and edits the show in addition to serving as co-creator.
It comes really naturally, to write these bits and everything, to create the character of DeMonica and everything, and Amanda plays her so well.
Amanda Durante, who plays DeMonica Diablo on Terror TV, hosts the show and draws from many inspirations for her Halloween look.
I just pulled inspiration from Elvira and put it together with things from my closet because I love Halloween, I love horror, so that's just me. It's just what I do. Stay tuned, all you horror fans, to watch me, DeMonica Diablo, host the Creature Feature here on Terror TV.
Up next, we discuss National Coming Out Day on a roundtable. Stay tuned.
Yesterday, October 11th, was National Coming Out Day, observed annually to celebrate coming out and to raise awareness of the LGBT community and civil rights movement. Founded in 1988 by activists Robert Eichberg and Jean O'Leary, it was designed as a positive response to anti-LGBT rhetoric and action at that time. They chose the date of October 11th because it's the anniversary of the 1987 National March on Washington for lesbian and gay rights. Robert Eichberg famously said, "Most people think they don't know anyone gay or lesbian, and in fact, everybody does. It's imperative that we come out," he says, "and let people know who we are and disabuse them of their fears and stereotypes." Our guest on tonight's roundtable will do just that. You are invited to join the conversation. You can call us, send an email, or use Twitter. The contact information appears on your screen. I'd like to welcome everyone here. Thank you. And if we can start with you, Sandy, can you just introduce yourself and in 10 or 15 seconds tell our audience what you do, why you're here?
Great, so my name is Sandy Solar, and I'm a clinical social worker. I'm a therapist at FSW, which stands for Family Services of Westchester. And I also work for the Mount Vernon CAP program as the LGBTQ education coordinator, and I also teach parenting classes there. And I'm really interested in supporting the groups, whether they're teens or adults, and it's a pleasure to be here.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Ryan?
Hello, so my name is Ryan Barnes. I also work with Miss Sandy at the CAP program in Mount Vernon, and I'm also an intern at the WAR program at the center in Manhattan, the LGBT Center in Manhattan.
Mm-hmm. That's on 13th Street, I believe?
Yes, it is. Yes,
good.
on
Well,
13th
welcome.
Street. Thank you so much.
And we have another Ryan here.
Ryan number 2. My name is Ryan Curran, and I am the volunteer coordinator of the Loft LGBTQ Community Center up here in White Plains, New York. And I just graduated from SUNY Geneseo, so I'm super excited.
Congratulations on your graduation.
Thank you.
And last but not least, a person who's been our guest before, Kevin Burke.
Yes, thank you for having me again. My name is Kevin Burke, just a local Westchester citizen who for years has promoted and worked together with also the Loft, several other organizations in kind of raising funds and throwing parties and shows and kind of making a presence here in Westchester.
That's
for
great.
the gay community.
Thank you all for coming. Well, all these letters, LGBTQ, and then there's a I, an A, and an I that we sometimes see. Mm-hmm. What do these letters stand for? I think people know the LG and B, bisexual.
Right.
And T is transgender.
Right.
And Sandy, the other two.
Q is queer, and A is asexual, and I is for intersex.
I've also heard that Q is for questioning.
Absolutely.
Is that true as well?
Yes, it is.
So it can be double.
Right.
Okay. It is a community of what, roughly 5 or 10% of the population is what the statistics say. Mm-hmm. Do you know how many people in Westchester that represents?
Not in particular, but that we do have we have a lot of volunteers at the Loft who come from Westchester itself, and especially the lower Hudson Valley. There are a lot of LGBT youth and adults who kind of come to utilize the center and our services.
Mm-hmm. Kevin, I think when you were here, we were talking about gay in Westchester and the difference between the urban experience, I mean, people who go to the city,
right,
and versus people who are in Westchester. And in Westchester, it was kind of a reserved, I would say.
Yeah, reserved, slightly disconnected, I think, between all the different towns and villages. I think it's really hard to get a singulatory stance of what Westchester gay really means, you know, because we're kind of all spread out, which is fine. You know, we make do with what we have.
Yeah.
But it's not as easy as per se things like Manhattan or other tight-knit metropolitan areas, you know. And I think that number's probably low too. I think there's probably more than 10% of the population, you know.
So we're not dealing with a dozen folks. We're dealing
Right.
with a sizable population.
Yes.
Ryan number one, Ryan Blueshirt, I should say. What does it mean to be out?
I believe out doesn't necessarily mean coming out to other individuals. I basically mean that in order to come out, you have to come out and accept yourself. And I think accepting yourself and being comfortable with who you are in your own skin and everything is imperative. It's absolutely important. And I think that that is essential to being successful and being just a happy person in life, is to know who you are. And even if you don't know, just be comfortable with it and always explore. Never always question everything. Just be out. Just know yourself, I think.
Kevin, does coming out mean the same thing, or is it more public than you accept yourself, and is there another step?
For me, there was two very distinct steps with two very different outcomes and two very different personal feelings that went with it. I first came out at a young age, well, teenager. You know, I mean, I love that every day people come out younger and younger, and I think it's fantastic.
Yeah.
I was a teenager, and I came out to my peers, my close friends, my cousins of my age first, and that was more of a coming out to tell other people. When I came out to my grandparents and my family several years later, it was more about letting them into who I really was and not shutting them out. And it was more, I was scared, not because I was afraid they weren't going to love me or accept me, but because it was terrifying to hear myself say those words and let people in to my life. I wanted to share my life with them. And you know, you can't do that until you come out, you know.
But Sandy, people who are heterosexual don't come out. We just assume.
Right.
It's a privilege.
To be gay.
No, to be straight. I think to not have to do that. You know, is a privilege.
So is coming out something that's sort of forced because the majority of the population has a different orientation than LGBTQ? I?
And that's the thing. The fact that we keep adding letters to this and changing it around really speaks volumes as to how much the gay and lesbian community really encompasses so many different people.
Yeah.
And that's why, coming out is so important, because every time somebody comes out, people are like, what's the big deal? Why do you got to come out? Well, not only for your own individual peace of mind and to be the person that you really are, which has a positive impact on your community and your family around you when you can be the true person to them that you really are. But also, like we touched before we started, is really breaking down those stereotypes. The more people that come out, the more people realize that, there's, it's not such a, terrible thing. It's not, a heresy. And, your neighbor is probably gay or the next block over.
I think there was at the Loft an author who recently came out with a book about misconceptions of LGBTQ folks, and I'd like to get into that for a second, but we have a question, and maybe Sandy, this is for you. What should parents say to a kid coming out, or what does a kid coming out want or need to hear?
Well, the one thing that they want and need to hear, I'll answer the second question first, is acceptance. It's really important. The parents, what I recommend that they do is just to listen, really. As much as they want to react and have something to say about it, or try to contradict what the child or the teen or the adult is thinking or saying to them at that moment, they should just take a breath, take a step back, and just listen, because it's really a time that's very, very hard. There's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of acceptance seeking, a lot of things going on with the hormones, right, in the body, et cetera. So it's really just about, just kind of taking a step back and allowing that child to open up to you so that you can have that communication that's essential, so that the transition for the child and yourself is easier.
And I should add for the audience that we're going to tell you about some resources that are in Westchester and also in New York City and Sandy is one of the LGBTQ-friendly therapists that I think the Loft maintains a list of.
Yes.
And so we'll tell you about that toward the end of the interview, so keep watching. What does it mean to be in the closet then, and closeted?
I guess for lack of like better terms, it's to be in the closet, like for me, was to pretend to be heterosexual. Like Kevin kind of said before, like there is privilege in being heterosexual because for me, you never, and for everybody on the LGBTQ, spectrum, like you never really stop coming out because you can be out to your family and your friends and your coworkers, but if you quit your job and you get a new one, you come out then. If you have a stranger, you have a conversation with a stranger in the middle of the street and they ask about your partner, you say, oh, I have a boyfriend, I have a girlfriend, I have a partner, and you just came out to somebody else essentially. So for me, kind of being in the closet was not accepting myself that I identified as gay, but also like when I talked to everybody else, they just assumed that I was heterosexual because I didn't correct them.
And we have another question from a viewer. Is coming out a generational thing? Do younger people reject the idea of needing to, quote, announce being gay when straight people don't? Maybe you could take that one, Brian.
Definitely.
Ryan, sorry.
No problem. I remember actually doing a public speech about this to one of the groups at Roar very recently, and I believe that coming out culture, as I like to call it, is becoming more and more, it's evolving, I believe, and I believe that people do it in very creative ways, but I also believe that people, since we are so diverse, we should not assume anything. And I think that coming out is almost like, it shouldn't be a thing to come out. I really don't think it should be, because I think we should all be loving and accepting of everyone, no matter what their gender or sexuality might be. But I feel that people feel the need to come out to be validated by the world, to be accepted, and just to know that I am this and you should accept me as another human being. I believe that we're all human beings, obviously, so I think that we should all accept and love each other. So I think coming out culture is just evolving, and I think it should end up not being a thing.
You agree with that, Ryan?
Yeah, I totally agree. Like nowadays, sometimes there's a pressure to come out. Like I was just having a conversation with my boyfriend yesterday on like National Coming Out Day about how sometimes there's the pressure to come out, But to be honest, like you shouldn't ever really have to come out, and it kind of stinks right now in society where there are so many people, even in Westchester County per se, who are anti-LGBT, who won't take the time just to understand that, my relationship is just as valid as yours. And I would love for us as a society to get to a point where you don't have to come out at all, because, then that just means that you're just accepting somebody for who they're loved. And honestly, like, loving my boyfriend really doesn't affect your life by any means, and who you love doesn't affect mine. So,
what about the concept of outing someone? Like against his or her will, I would imagine, or desire. Somebody who says, who reveals that somebody else is LGBT or Q.
It's rude, I mean, it's not, it's I would liken it to any other kind of dark family secret maybe, or a personal private issue that somebody has. You don't go, telling other people that, that's their business, you have a moment in time to make a clear decision to become a very good friend and an ally and help this person, or to not and be detrimental.
Okay, we've got another viewer question. What about coming out as an adult or a married man? We've been talking about youth coming out, and you were saying more and more youth are coming out. What about someone in middle age, or someone who's even married and realizes that she or he is gay? Go ahead.
I think that it's easier for an adult, right? Because they're already gone past that acceptance stage most of the time. As a teen, where you're trying to fit in, etc. At this point, if you're like, 30, 40, 50 years old, right? You're able to kind of feel more at ease with who you are. And sometimes you really don't care what other people think at that point, right? But as a teen, it's a lot of pressure to fit in and to be accepted.
We're going to be talking about some of the pros as well as maybe some of the cons and perhaps the role of religion, but we need to take a little bit of a break right now for a public service announcement. We'll be right back. The Local Live talking about Coming Out Day.
Did you know you could watch LMC TV anywhere? Yes, even there. Go to lmctv.org and scroll down the main page. Choose your channel and click Watch Now, then press play. You can watch whatever's live on our channel wherever you are. Want to watch a specific show on demand? Go to Videos, click on Category, or Shows to list by title, or by keyword in the search bar at the top right of the page. It's all a click away at lmctv.org.
Welcome back to tonight's roundtable. We're talking about National Coming Out Day, which was October 11th in the United States. It's also celebrated internationally, isn't it, in several other countries?
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Just the cool ones.
Pardon me?
Just the cool ones.
And obviously there are other observations of LGBTQ. There's Pride Month in June. There's several other days, AIDS awareness, and so it's not just one time. It's a continuance. But it's positive. As we said in the very beginning, the people that originated this, 29 years ago, wanted to respond positively. They wanted something that would add to the stature of folks who are LGBTQ. I wanted to talk a little bit about pros and cons, and also religion and culture, especially Hispanic culture, where what I understand is the culture gets in the way, and religion also plays a large role in that. Is it true that, from your experience, Sandy, that is that religion gets in the way, or that's part of the culture?
It's part of the culture, and I do believe that it does get in the way. From my experience, what I've seen growing up, I found that, because, for example, the Spanish culture is very big with the Catholic religion, right? So it was like taboo. And culturally, right, you're supposed to be this macho man, right? Or if you're a woman, you're a woman. And it's really not something that's looked upon as being something you should be proud of. So coming out can be very detrimental. And again, it's mostly rooted in the cultural beliefs and the religion, as you stated. Do you have any specific advice, or did you know of anyone who was dealing with that and they dealt with it successfully? No, I know of someone who was dealing with that and did not deal with it successfully, and it did end up in a suicide, which I'm very sad about. But it's a very hard thing. But I think because of all the resources that are out there now, support groups, et cetera, and because we have more education, I think that little by little is starting to be more welcomed.
And before we run out of time, I did want to talk about resources, and one of them, Ryan, you brought up. I think this is from the LGBTQ Center in the city. It's on 13th Street, and it's a center. And what services do they have available?
So they have a youth center, which is what I'm a member of. So that is where youth between the ages of 13 and 21 can go to just be around other youth of that age, and just to experience what it's like to be an LGBT youth, and just to hear different stories and hear different people. Like, I've met so many different types of individuals I didn't really know existed, to be honest, and it's just extremely refreshing and it makes me feel extremely humble, and it makes me feel like I'm part of a family. So that's the youth part. Then the main center is for mainly adults, and that's most of the center, but I don't really deal with that. So.
And they have a website for information about their programs and helplines, et cetera?
Yes, they do. So the website is www.gaycenter.org. That's the website.
And we have another resource in the Loft, which is, by the way, a big shout out to the Loft and to Scott Havelka and you folks for, I know this panel was put together sort of quickly, so I want to thank them for doing that. Ryan, do you want to talk a little bit about the resources that the Loft has available and their website?
Yeah, of course. Well, the website is www.loftgaycenter.org, and it's actually kind of funny because before we were talking about coming out as you're older, and the Loft actually has a program called Silver Connections, which is meant for those 55 plus, actually, and the program encourages those who I guess are above their teenage and young adult years to kind of still engage in socialization. Like there's 2 open houses per month, and one of the open houses is taking place this Saturday actually, and it's when the Kindness Project is happening. And the Kindness Project essentially is being run by a student from Sarah Lawrence College, and it's kind of reminding everybody to still be kind to others and miss all of this political, tragedies that's happening for the U.S. right now.
Yeah.
But the loft specifically serves those 18 and older, but our partner in Yonkers, Center Lane, they serve youth 13 to 21.
I've done some work with them in the past.
Center Lane?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great organization too, especially for youth.
It is, yeah.
And don't they meet at the loft as well?
Yes, they do. On Friday nights, there is the drop-in for Center Lane, and they rent out a space for the loft. Essentially, it's kind of like a hangout group where they'll play board games. Sometimes they'll have discussion groups. It's kind of like an open discussion for those youth who kind of drop in. But the loft has about 16 different support groups for bisexuality, lesbian social network, people of color, and then there's a bunch, I think there's 10 or 15 types of social groups that you can kind of become a part of.
And I also know that at the loft there's the PFLAG of Westchester meets. That's parents and friends
families.
of lesbians and gays.
Yes.
PFLAG, I got it. And that's once a month.
Yes, PFLAG rents out space from the loft actually, and they are having an event on October 17th. And the author of When Your Child is Gay is actually coming to the center to kind of have a discussion with the parents and families and staff members who are kind of coming into that meeting with PFLAG.
Funny, because October 17th is my birthday.
Hey, happy birthday. And you were talking earlier, Ryan, about accepting yourself, and it's a path that you travel. So when you tell your friends and your family, you can't expect that they would instantly understand and accept. They have to follow a path of their own too, right?
Absolutely.
Give them time, as you said, give them time, Sandy. We have another question that they're telling me is on the prompter. Advice for someone who knows they are LGBTQ but doesn't accept himself or herself. What do you do?
That's tough.
What's advice?
Yeah, well, it's also tough to give advice. Advice is loaded most of the time. And it's hard to put yourself in other people's shoes. But I would just remind them that they are not alone, and there are these services. And I think once you discover that it's not this terrible burden to have to be part of the gay community. I think it's a process, for one's own self, to grow.
So what do you young people think? What would you tell someone who doesn't accept himself or herself?
I actually do have personal experience with that. I did have a really good friend who wasn't such a good friend at the time, but he did come to me for some advice and things like that. And he was very much struggling with those things. And he saw how since I just have such a bubbly personality, he saw that I was extremely comfortable with myself. And he almost envied me as to how are you able to, he almost saw it as a supernatural thing, as how are you able to accept yourself in such an awesome way? And I'm just I almost said you just have to do it, but again, it's very hard to put people, to put yourself in other people's shoes. So I believe he was dealing with much more, he was dealing with a lot more family problems because he does come from a very religious family, and I think that was a very big part of why he couldn't accept himself. So I think coming out to people you are very, very comfortable with is extremely, extremely important. Funny story about when you said coming out and how hard that might be with friends and family, because I really didn't have a coming out experience, really. My mom, I didn't really sit her down and was like, Mom, I'm gay. And it just wasn't this big old thing. She was just like, I love you and I accept you. You're still my son and I love you. And it's almost funny, I always use this analogy as to I was quote unquote in the closet, but the doors were open, so people can always see that I was, and it was just kind of okay, I'm here, just let's me.
But in contrast, Sandy, you just mentioned a while ago about the suicide rates of this population.
Right.
And so what advice would you give to someone?
Well,
therapy.
Therapy is definitely an option.
What about seeking therapy?
Seeking therapy, and I don't mean just for the teen that's coming out, also for the parents.
Yeah.
For the family. Family therapy it's wonderful. And I have a short story as well. I have a teen who realized she was bisexual and she was failing in school. She started getting depressed, anxiety. She came to me, we started having sessions, and I said, what do you think would help you? She says, for my mom and my dad to find out and for them to know. So we actually planned a session, and it was very interesting, I have to say, and I'll just call her Mary. And she sat there, you know, she was twirling her fingers and putting holes in her sweater, and I said to her, whenever you're ready. And I said to the parents, she's got a great secret she wants to share with you guys. I said, can you just be open and just love her no matter what comes out of her mouth? And they were like, what's happening? What is she gonna? Could you just like accept whatever it is? Just listen. And she took 2 minutes. She finally looked up and she told them, and they sat there with their, you know, mouths wide open. But then the dad said, I don't care what you are. I love you. And I just have to say, from that moment on, her grades have gone up. She's really depressed. I mean, I get chills just thinking about it. I've seen a whole 360 transformation with this young lady, and she's doing fabulous. And we've had, I would say, about 8 to 10 family sessions, and things are kind of normal now. And she feels accepted, she feels loved. So I always say, you know, that's the key. It's all about listening, being open, and loving, and just accepting.
We're out of time, unfortunately. We could go on. The audience obviously has seen some of the decor that we have around here, the pride flag, and I believe, and this is the trans flag, and so you might see these around for National Coming Out Day.
You can buy them at the Loft if you're interested.
Okay, and we've got the Loft website, we've got the Center's website, and if you missed any of those websites, you can always watch our program online. We archive all of our shows on YouTube. I want to thank you all for sharing your coming out stories and advice for the LGBTQ community. We'll be back with more of the Local Live right after this.
We're seeing more and more plastic bags in our streets, in our parks, and swimming in our waterways every day. So, the town of Mamaroneck is kicking off the Reusable Bag Initiative, and we need you to pitch in and help to keep our environment clean and healthy. Each year, 300 billion plastic bags are used in the US, and 23 billion of those are used by New York residents alone. Plastic bags release highly toxic chemicals that contaminate soil and water. This can cause disease, injury, and oftentimes death to many plants and animals that come in contact with them. To save our beautiful community from the effects of plastic bag pollution, we have to change our shopping habits. When your family takes their next trip to the grocery store, remember your reusable bags. Don't have any? Our local stores offer stylish options with most under $1 each. If you have any unneeded plastic bags around the house, be sure to reuse them or see that they're properly disposed of. Never throw your plastic bags in the trash or onto the street. Always look for a recycling bin. It's time for plastic bags to be struck out. Let's score big this year by supporting our Reusable Bag Initiative.
Have you been looking for a way to get your YouTube project off the ground? Well, look no further. Down here at LMC TV, we have the tools to bring your ideas to life. With the magic of green screen, you can go anywhere. If you're into current events, politics, or entertainment, sounds like you create your own news channel. And this is the perfect spot for you. We have access to numerous pre-made news sets with customizable options. So come share what you think is important to your audience. Or if you want to talk about things that you love, like video games, then this is your GameStop. Give your personal review, share your tricks and cheats, or boast your achievements. Whatever you want to share with your fellow gamers. Hungry for more? Come teach us how to create some tasty treats, share kitchen hacks, or easy meals. Be your own Chef Boyar YouTube. Into creating but not cooking? This is your DIY destination. Tell the world how you create fun things from scratch. Come on down and start recording. The sky's the limit down here at LMC. If you want to make your very own YouTube show, come down Tuesdays or Fridays between 4 and 6. You must reserve your time in advance and bring your own script, JPEGs, and videos and a USB with you. Go to lmctv.org for more information.
You lucky viewers, you get to meet me, Delmonica from Terror TV. Stay tuned for more of the local live. It's much better than the non-local, not alive programming out there. Trust me, I know.
Rocky is a big mush who hams it up for attention. Rare for a cat, but Rocky loves water. He loves to drink from the tap and likes to make the water in his bowl move before drinking it. He gets along with most other cats and would love to lounge on your windowsill. Scotty is a super sweet and absolutely gorgeous lab mix around 1 year old. This guy is still very puppyish and has a wonderful, gentle personality. Scotty is very friendly and shows it in his tail wag and has perfected the head tilt. He's a non-stop bundle of joy ready to brighten your home. To adopt Rocky or Scotty or to view other pets, go online to ny-petrescue.org. We always welcome new volunteers and interns, and we love hearing from our viewers. Send us an email to thelocallive@lmctv.org. Thank you so much for watching our show. That's all for tonight. I'm Murad Kathwari. See you next week for a new episode of The Local Live.